Hey D, you know that thing about me? How I allegedly staged a brutal murder that one time and scammed a family out of the insurance money? And how I framed the spouse, but then he got out? So then I allegedly staged a second murder to frame him again? And how all that murder and framing and insurance scam stuff wasn't even the weirdest part of the thing about me?
No.
Oh, wait, no. That wasn't the thing about me. That was the thing about Pam.
Welcome to So Much Crime, So Little Time. I'm Dee.
And I'm Jeff. And before we start, I want to give a warning here that there will be spoilers in this episode for the Dateline podcast, The Thing About Pam. If you haven't listened yet, check out our preview episode on this show. It's the one before this one in your feed. But if you have listened to The Thing About Pam, we have so much crime to cover and so little time. So we're going to skip the recap and get right into it.
All right, Jeff, the question of the hour. In our preview episode, we both gave our initial thoughts. I'd love to hear, did your initial reaction stand the test of time?
Yeah, no, this was a bizarre and fascinating podcast all the way through. I think one of the things we critiqued the first episode for, I don't know, we observed about the first episode was that there wasn't a lot of Pam in it, despite the title, The Thing About Pam. There's so much Pam in the rest of it, like all the time.
Pam.
So much Pam. So, yeah, what about you? What did you think?
I mean, I feel like my initial thoughts were positive. Like we had a few things that we were intrigued about, like specifically the name, because I was like, well, if it's about Pam, like, is this giving away a lot? But like now I'm like, is it possible that I was just not positive enough? It was excellent. It was like baffling, and I'm still so baffled by it, and we'll get into like what I'm baffled about. But it was really good. Really, really good.
All
Definitely
right. So
worth
should we just kind of walk through what happened and talk about it as we go? How's that sound?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So picking up, I guess, really with episode 2, right? Because we talked in pretty much in a lot of detail about episode 1. So
Yeah.
we get into Russ's trial, his first trial, and just about Russ in general. And then we move on to, well, let's talk about that for a little bit. Yeah.
What I found so intriguing about like Russ and the trial and like the people surrounding it all and who were all involved of it, like initially it seemed that Betsy's family were like, Russ couldn't have done it. But then all of a sudden they seemed to switch. Like the mother and sister seemed to say, oh, well, he was X, Y, and Z. He was a real man's man. He was a bit, crass and this, that, and the other. Like, surely if your family-in-law think you could possibly kill their relative or their daughter or whatever, like that's a bit worrying.
Just a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what do you make of Russ? Like, what was your impression of this guy?
I mean, I don't know how sound this is to say, but like not much. Like I didn't really feel like I got to know Russ. Like he seemed fine. Like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I had no feelings towards him.
Just neutrality towards Russ.
Yeah, just like meh. I was intrigued by his game night, but his game night sounded like a movie night, which confused me. Which I know that's a real aside to the whole focus of the podcast. But like, I was like, you're having a game night and you're watching, what movie was he watching again?
Well, there was Conan first.
The Road.
And then The Road, yeah.
I'm like, that's not a game night. Like, have you been to a game night? A game night is where you play games.
Okay, all right. You also got hung up a little on the Arby's thing, which I stand by as a solid use of the munchies.
Mean, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Well, let's talk a little about the trial. So Russ's trial, he gets made out to be just sort of this, monster a little bit, right? Like, we
Completely.
hear these horrible things.
A little bit.
Yeah. There's this implication that he, the one last violation of Betsy which was a lot. And then this description of how he went about it with like basically conspiring with all of his friends, right? Like his game night friends had to help him set up his alibi. Despite the security camera footage, the receipts, the cell phone pings, like just how elaborate of a cover up it must have been, or how like shoddy the police work must have been. There's what else is there? There's the bloody slippers. There's the, like, how did he clean up, right? Like, okay,
in the
so
nip.
yeah.
Like, really? Like, he's just wandering around having a beer, cleaning up the blood. Like, what?
In the span of like minutes too, right? Like there's so little time that this occurred in.
And also, like, I was just this. I feel like the word of the episode for me is going to be baffled. Like, I was so baffled because he had such a solid alibi. Like, first of all, like we discussed something similar to this the last time, but like the issue with his alibi is that all his game night friends, like, their alibis were too similar. But there's multiple of them. Like, if they weren't similar enough, people would be saying, oh, there's discrepancies. Like, that must be a sign that they're faking it. Like, what? Also, would your friends fake an alibi for you so that you could kill your wife? And the way it was like, oh, the game night, they made this into a really blah game night. I go back to the fact that it wasn't a game night. They were just sitting around smoking weed, watching the road. But anyway, like, as if they were like taking part in a game night is like this evil thing.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it didn't add up. It was
the timeline doesn't make a sense either. Sorry.
The timeline, I mean, the receipts alone, like, who has an accounting of their time this detailed, this thorough for a guy who's just going and hang out with his friends?
Yeah. So, and like, the thing is, you were saying, like, you know, the claiming there was sexual activity before, like, you know, this one last
violation. That's the word they used.
Thank you. But then it was like, well, there was like, what did they say, 8 or 9 sperm found in her? And they were like, well, actually, that shows that it was probably like 2 or 3 days before, like not immediately before. But like, let's ignore that. And like, the DNA evidence seemed like circumstantial. And like, I don't know, there was so much going against it, like against what they were trying to say. And like, even there was a lot of details about, and it was quite gruesome, how calm the knife wounds were. They weren't erratic.
Right.
It was like very
They were methodical.
Calm. Yeah. It was so bizarre. And then the whole closing argument from the prosecutor. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you re-listened to his 911 call, but the prosecutor claimed you could tell he's moving around when he's making it, as if he's probably in the nip cleaning up, moving around with the 911 call. I was like, he's probably pacing back and forth. Like, if you've just found someone dead, and I know we discuss like the ethics, how ethical it is to listen to this or to be playing this, and we also discuss like how you cannot really judge someone on how they act in a situation like this, because sure, who knows how any of us would act. But like, oh, he's moving around, he must be complicit. Like, oh yeah, because of that he definitely did it. Like, it just made no sense to me.
Can we do a little people? Wait, I want to do a little sidebar. In the nip, is that an Irishism? Is that I know what you mean. I like it from context clues. I'm with you.
I don't know. Sorry.
Not a phrase I use. Okay.
I don't know. We use it. Yeah. We use it all the time. That sounds
when
really
you're cleaning
weird.
At home in your slippers.
We use it all the time. I suppose with the kids or something. It's like, get into the nip. You're going into the bath. I don't know. That's just what we say. Anyway, that was a funny sidebar I wasn't expecting. But when you think of all of the cases of people being wrongly convicted, or people losing out on convictions when you like know a person did it, without this strong evidence backing them up, like there's so many people that have been wrongly convicted on really weak evidence.
Yeah.
And like I just looking at this being like, how does this happen?
And on top of that, I feel like, as embarrassing as the police work seems, there were also some examples, like like they had that test of like how much semen there was, but also like they checked the pipes. They took the pipes out to see if there was blood in the pipes from the shower. Like if he had gone and showered off the blood, they actually checked like that baffled me. Like that level of investigative work.
And, yeah.
And yet it also showed that there wasn't blood in the pipes, right? Like so he couldn't have taken a shower.
Yeah.
I don't know. And all the while there's this suspicion about Pam that the jury can't hear, right? Like the jury isn't allowed to hear the last person to see her alive.
Another baffling. Like isn't allowed because it would be a red herring? Like because it might confuse people?
Well, let's get into Pam a little bit because we're starting to get more about Pam and also Pam and Betsy, right? So,
pause before we do that.
Okay.
When you find out that Pam became the beneficiary to Betsy's life insurance, 4 days before she was murdered. First of all, why?
Right.
Like, either it's faked or it's falsified, or like, I don't know the why, because she's like, oh, she wanted to go to her daughter's. We'll get to that in a bit.
Sure.
But she wanted to go to her daughter's. Why not her mother? Like,
yeah.
Why not her sister?
Husband,
why not her best friend that is spoken about a little bit later?
Pam is not her best friend. That's made clear.
Yeah. Pam was only her friend. They only struck up a friendship when Pam got sick.
Right. Yeah. I mean, also, did these people not see Double Indemnity? Like, do they not know, like, this insurance scam? Like, get on someone's
the way you say
insurance.
that, and I'm like, I haven't. Like, should I?
It's a classic movie. Basically.
Like, oh my God, I can't believe they haven't seen it.
All right. But you know this scam, right? Like, the person who's the beneficiary of the insurance is the most likely suspect, is it not?
I mean, of course.
Yeah.
Especially when there's like better people involved in it. Like, you know, there's better options. It's different if like she's on her own and she doesn't have anyone else to give this money to.
Well, and if we can get into this a little bit too, kind of what we get into in episode 3, where it's more about Pam and the insurance and so Pam's trial, right? Like there's the civil trial over the insurance scam. And we learn that the lead investigator on Betsy's murder helped Pam and suggested that she set up this trust for Betsy's daughters, like which.
But you have to remember was it episode 1 or episode 2 where they said like the police loved her.
Yeah.
Like they had great time with her, great chats with her, whatever. Like they ring the insurance company, ring up and say, hey, like this is the beneficiary. Like, are we authorized to give this money to Pam? And the police are like, yeah, sure. We don't need to investigate that. That's not strange at all. Like, and then
strange.
It's pretty strange. And then, as you said, they're like, oh, yeah, I think it would be a good idea before the court case if you set up a trust fund for the girls because that makes you look less guilty. And they recorded it. Like, that's on record.
Yeah. I don't know. We also get in that episode, we get a little bit of her background, right? Like her history, not just with Betsy, but like a little bit of her life history, which I know it was referenced, and I went down that path of that St. Louis Magazine article, which was basically retells the whole story of the podcast, but it goes into some different details and including basically like Pam's backstory. Did you read that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So one thing there's one quote I pulled out of it that is, so this is talking about pre-Betsy Pam and interviews with some of her neighbors. And it said neighbors, so this is again coming from the St. Louis Magazine article. Neighbors recall a few odd incidents at the time. A pile of bloody animal bones left in someone's yard, several mean-spirited anonymous letters. At the time, people shrugged them off. In retrospect, they wonder. So, okay, first of all, that's a great paragraph, right? Like we start with a pile of bloody animal bones left in someone's yard. And then the second example is mean-spirited anonymous letters, which
Sounds like a PTA or something.
Right? Yeah, I don't know that I don't know. But there's no other
slightly
comment.
different levels of like.
Yeah, I mean, a pile of bloody animal bones left in someone's yard, like that's sociopathic behavior, isn't it? Like and so they don't know that Pam did that. It's just something weird that happened to her neighbors before all of this. So, I mean, we're starting to build a little bit of a pattern of Pam's odd behavior, right?
I mean, yeah, and like it's really interesting because again, word of the episode, baffling. What was so baffling is how odd the behavior was consistently. Like if there's one consistent thing that Pam does, she's odd. She displays odd behavior. Like it seems like if you would say to someone, you know, someone got away with 2 murders and insurance fraud and setting someone else up for a murder. Like if you told someone all of this, you'd be like, wow, they must like, you know, like it would surely take a lot like of brains or like smarts to get here. She wasn't smart. Like she was just lucky that people were stupid, lazy. I don't know the right word for this, but like people were blind to it. Like she was flip-flopping. Her statement was flip-flopping from the get-go. First of all, she brought out that like she was the beneficiary 4 days after, then she closes the trust fund and she's like, no, they were mean to me. They said mean things to me about Betsy's daughters. So I'm going to take their money away. Okay, how old are you? But anyway, like there's just so much like consistently baffling odd behavior. Like that's what she does. And then the whole second thing was just what, yeah, we'll get into it.
Wait, which second thing?
Like the setting up of the murder that she staged when she killed
okay,
Lewis.
Let's sit on that. Let's get back to that. I thought you were going to get into the whole Pam and Betsy special bond thing too.
Well, that was an odd addition. Like it didn't add anything to the story to be like, oh, we had this sexual relationship and that is why we were so close. Like I replaced what a husband was to her. That's something that she says to police at the second trial. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm skipping. Yep. Because that's Russ gets off and he gets a second trial. And during the second trial, this is something she brings up. And I'm like, why not say this at the get-go? Like, it was just such a random, like, it didn't strengthen her argument at all.
Well, but a lot of things don't. Right? Like, so... Yeah, like when Pam is on trial, she gets treated as a hostile witness, right? Mm-hmm. Like she is very evasive. She acts like she can't hear or she can't understand the lawyer's questions. And she still wins that trial, right? Like this is the insurance money trial. And she still comes out on top there, which I mean, I'll use your word. It's baffling how that happens. But even in the trial before that, in Russ's trial, you know, they talk about how she had this weird charm over the police and how they loved her. I just like, you're right that like it wasn't that clever of a crime. It wasn't that well covered up. Like the number of sort of leaps of logic that had to happen for her to escape. There's one other element to this too, which I forget where this came up. And this actually might have been in that St. Louis Magazine article. I'm not sure where I heard this, but there's a bit about the where is this in my notes? Oh yeah. So Joel Schwartz, who is Russ's lawyer, receives an anonymous printout of an email that looked like it was sent to Askey, who's the lead prosecutor, by Mike Lang, who is the captain of investigations for Lincoln County, which, yeah, I think I'm quoting from the article here, is indicated an intense romantic relationship between them, between Askey, the prosecutor, and the captain of investigations. And the quote from Joel Schwartz is, "This is not a puppy dog crush on the hot girl in high school kind of love. This is an epic shit stories are written about kind of love." Are
you saying that Askey and the lead investigator had a relationship, or that Pam had a relationship with both Askey and the lead investigator?
No. This is Askey and the lead investigator. The lead investigator Lang said quote, "I will do my best to be everything you need," to Askey. And Lang was the one who, this is from that article, never bothered to request the data to map Russ's cell phone the night of the murder. Like, he basically just handed her, Askey, the prosecutor, a version of this case. Not the correct one.
Okay, so let's just pencil Lang down for a moment as
Sure.
an idiot who just loves a woman and is doing anything for her, which I say with disgust in my face and my voice. But let's just pause and look at Askey then. Why? Like, why, when you have this evidence in front of you, are you so gung-ho on getting Russ sent down when it is clear that another potential, it's not like you have nothing, not that I condone just going for the person you have, but it's not like she has nothing. She has a lot of evidence that's pointing to Pam, that she is choosing.
Right.
Even after Russ gets off, she chooses to ignore. Why?
Yeah, why does she do that? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. I mean,
If Betsy
it's sort of,
can be convinced by Pam to change her life insurance so that she's the beneficiary, maybe she's really convincing and we just haven't seen that. Like,
I think that's possible.
maybe there's more.
I mean, if you think, and if we keep moving ahead a little bit to, let's see, we talked about her civil trial, the insurance trial, which she gets off. The next thing that I think we get to is the Louis Gumpenberger murder, which is,
okay.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a little bit.
Do you want to talk about Louis? Do we want to talk about what actually happened before Louis, even though sequentially in the episodes you hear about this after, like the pre-Louis? What's her name?
Carol Alford. Yeah, Carol.
Oh. Is she like the gassest character ever? Sorry, translation. Isn't she like the funniest character ever? Like, you gotta bring 2 knives. You don't trust someone. I just thought I kind of want to go for a drink with her. I'd say she'd be good fun. Like,
So yeah, just as a quick recap of who she is. So Pam goes trolling, basically driving around trailer parks, wherever, looking for someone to basically frame in order to associate with Russ somehow, so that she keeps pushing this narrative that Russ killed Betsy, which and one of the first people that she tries to lure into this trap is Carol Alford. Pam pretends to be Kathy, the Dateline producer, and she's doing a reenactment of a 911 call, which they like to make clear in the Dateline podcast is not something they do, and they certainly wouldn't offer someone money like Pam does. But Carol is too smart for this. Right. And she basically she has her security camera set up. She kept, and I saw the picture of it. Did you look at the picture of this? There's a picture of Pam leaning out of her big black SUV, Carol in her driveway. And it's definitely Pam. So there's concrete evidence of this.
And then Carol, she offers her $1,000. And then when Louis's body is found, $900 are in his pocket, and the other 100 in what do they say? The bills are consecutively
sequential.
numbered, sequential, are in Pam's purse. So it's the 1,000 that, she offered.
Which Carol. You think about the odds of that she had sequential bills too, right? If she had just not had sequential bills, if she had paid him in random 20s she got from an ATM, they wouldn't have been sequential probably.
Also, she loves money. Why didn't she take the 900 quid off Louis before the police got there? I'm like, why are you leaving it on him? I don't understand that.
Let's talk a little bit about Louis. So we get introduced to this with this 911 call, another 911 call. And this is Pam calling 911. And as basically she's claiming that Louis has come and is attacking her, and she shoots and kills him. Mm-hmm. But then we learn that this was all staged. And Louis thinks he's an actor. What? It's... Yeah. She murders him. She puts this note that's supposedly from Russ in his pocket. But find out later Russ didn't write that because they do a whole handwriting sample thing.
Which also, I feel like we need to pause on that because I think in episode 1 they spoke about doing a polygraph on Russ, and they did this handwriting specialist thing, and they also used the like towers to ping
the cell phone data.
Yeah, and I'm like, I feel like from Serial I learned that the cell phone data is not accurate because if it can't get to one for whatever reason, it gets to another one that's kind of close by, so you can't really like narrow it down like that. Is handwriting specialist, like, is that actually a thing? Like, because I don't know about you, but I forged my mother's signature plenty of times when I was in school. Like, surely it's doable to face
What's the statute of limitations on forging your mother's signature? Has that passed? Is that lapsed?
I mean, who in Ireland will listen to this? So we have that, and then like, what was the third thing that I was talking about?
The polygraph.
Oh, the polygraph. I mean, like, we don't even need to talk about how outrageous that is. They use it on Love Island, for God's sake. But anyway, so it's like, this to me, I was like, okay, what year are we in? Like, seriously, a lot of this stuff, like, they're taking out pipes, but they're not.
As an aside to something that I learned here, because there's so many, I feel like if you use this as an instructional tool on how to frame someone, how to commit a crime, there's a lot of things to learn from where Pam went wrong. One of them that I never knew, maybe you knew this, when you dial 911, it's recorded from the second you dial, not from when they pick up.
Love that for us.
That moment before, what an amazing fact.
What an amazing fact. I also thought it was very funny that they were like, she started her 911 call with, hey.
Yeah.
Again, like, to be fair, I'm not going to zone in on her 911 call that much because I'm like, we don't know how we'd react when we're calling in that situation, if that was in fact the situation. But the way they were like, you heard that right? She started the 911 call with, hey.
Well, okay. And I know I was focused last time on how, your affect on a 911 call is not reliable, as they say. But wow, she's a bad actress. Like her reading of those lines, as she's murdering this guy, as she's killing someone, she is total flat affect, total like, this is a understudy for an off Broadway play level of delivery. It was
wild. Also, so I re-listened to this the whole time because the description I found, obviously, as a mom, I was like, Lewis, his mother, gives a lot of interesting and really sad descriptions about him, like his mental and physical capacity, like
he had a car accident, right? And he had a brain injury.
Yeah. And so I was like, we can hear something being said. So I re-listened to the 911 call, but on like 0.5 speed, so in slow motion, which was very interesting. It gave a very different take to what Keith was saying, the presenter was saying, like, right beforehand. But also, like, it sounds like he's like, well, do you want me to kill your wife? Or maybe what do you want me to do to your wife? I don't. It was hard to understand, but I was like, someone surely can listen to this and know that he's not like, I'm going to kill you. He's like, hello. Like, he doesn't sound aggressive, and Pam doesn't sound at all scared.
No.
Like, of all the emotions to portray, surely scared, I don't know, pretty easy, wouldn't it?
Well, and you'd think so. But also that one detail, I think was one of the first things they mentioned, she put a piece of carpet down.
Oh my God, the carpet. I was like brought back to like olden days in my house when my mom was like, don't eat that on the couch. That's the new couch. Like, and you're putting a blanket down and whatever. I was in a friend's house on Saturday and this blanket goes down when we're eating over anything, like any soft furnishings. This is what I'm saying. Like, she was not clever.
No.
Take your $1,000 and fix your carpet. Like, getting a professional carpet cleaner is going to cost you less than, your life in prison because you use this SWAT to be like saving your good carpet. But it also shows like she didn't think she was going to get caught.
No. Well, she'd gotten away with it before.
Yeah, I know.
But this is the thing that she gets caught for, right? The Louis Gumpenberger murder. That's what she goes to prison for.
I mean, it was really poorly done. He
Yes.
got into my car, like he came up, and then I ran into my house. But I don't know, the whole
Right,
thing.
because what you're alluding to is they traced her cell phone to
Mm-hmm.
being in his neighborhood, like within an hour
Oh.
before the crime.
So that was interesting because that wasn't the cell phone pings. This is something else I didn't realize is that like if your Google location is on, so during the
Oh, right, the
interview
Google
with
location data.
police,
Yes.
they basically said like, "Can we take your phone?" And she said, "Sure." And handed over her phone. And what she didn't realize is they could use that through her, because she was signed into her Google Drive or
Google,
whatever.
yeah.
They could find her her location. That was wild.
So what you're saying is, at all times when I have my phone with me, Google knows where I am and is tracking that and will hand it over to the police whenever they ask.
mean, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
But they didn't hand it over. The company didn't hand it over. She handed over her phone and she was signed into her Google account.
Oh, they
and the
just looked at her
police-
phone and got it.
Like she gave them her phone. Like, this is what I'm saying. I'm like, you are so cocky. Like,
She might as well have,
so
like,
arrogant that you
Downloaded the
actually
maps.
think,
Like, yeah.
like put Lewis in like her contacts or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, it was like she was goading them. It
Well-
was like, and there was a lot more. There's a few more things and reasons where I was wondering, was she just like this relentless child pushing and pushing as far as I can go to see when I'm going to get caught?
What
Like,
are
was
the other things?
Was this all a game for her? Because the other thing, I don't know, did I miss something? Did I fall asleep to the silky smooth voice of Keith? But like, why did she stage this? Why didn't she just take Betsy's money and get on with her life? Nobody was looking at her. Like,
Yeah.
why did she do this?
Well, okay, you're right. I feel like that isn't thoroughly addressed, but I think, and this is maybe my conjecture, but so at that point, Russ had his conviction overturned, right? So Russ is out of prison, but there is no current investigation into Betsy's murder, right?
No.
Like basically, Russ is out, and then it's all over. So, but maybe she's just worried that eventually there is going to be a new investigation that will point to her. So she needs to like bolster her alibi or bolster Russ's guilt. I don't know.
Wild.
And I mean, so many elements of this are so wild. This is one of the wildest stories that I think I've ever heard. Well, and then we get this little aside. Can we talk about, so episode 6? So this is where we go through her conviction for the murder, but we also get this other story about her mother.
Okay. Before we get into her mother, can we just pause for a second to discuss when she's being interviewed for Lewis's murder, how the attempt of suicide? Can we speak about that for a second?
Oh yeah, let's
Because-
talk about that. So she's
Was
in
that, like-
custody, right?
Was that not like the biggest FU to police? Like, not only am I going to take this pen, which was really gruesome in itself, but I'm going to stick it somewhere to replicate how I allegedly killed Betsy.
So she sticks it in her neck and in her wrists.
Yeah.
Which the knife was found in Betsy's throat.
Neck. And she had
deep cuts.
slits in her wrist. Now, obviously not in her torso. And how, like, the officer was like, "Are you okay in there?" And, like, mid, like, stabbing herself with a plastic pen, she's like, "Yeah, I'm fine."
Yeah. Yeah. So she's in the bathroom at the courthouse, right? And
Yeah.
okay, so did none of these people see, I'm going to say any of those movies where, like, but the one I'm thinking of is Silence of the Lambs, where it's just like, you don't give the murderer a paperclip, you don't give them a pen, you don't, like, you keep your eyes on all possible stabbing implements at all times. Like, that's like,
If not only for themselves, for, like, you.
Right. Yeah, Silence of the Lambs takes a different direction with that.
I've never seen it.
Oh, it's gruesome.
Yeah, too scary for me.
I think it involves a paperclip.
Ooh. Sorry. Let's go to Pam's mother, because this is another thing that, like,
so
this wasn't baffling to me. This was just so upsetting.
So Shirley Newman is her mother. She died 2 years after Betsy died, and she was in like an assisted living facility. She quote fell through the balcony railings, and so she fell to her death. And they basically treated it as an accident.
Like
no investigation really of any substance.
But like, so many questions. So
Yeah,
first of all, Pam brings her mother back, and then goes up to her room with her, and then comes down and says she won't be down for dinner or breakfast. Like, I get the dinner. Maybe they've gone out for a nice big lunch and she doesn't want to have food that night. But not breakfast the next day. Who's skipping breakfast and dinner? Like, you're just not doing that.
I've never done that.
No. And then they go up and they see that she has fallen. I'm doing air quotes as if anyone can hear them. Maybe
that's for the non-existent YouTube feed of this
podcast. Yeah. So that she's fallen, but like all of the like 2 or 3 of the railings are like pushed forward. It's like, how does that happen? And then she is like gone over. What I don't understand about this.
Just one thing.
One of the main things I don't understand about this is, if Betsy wanted to kill her mother, her mother had like a lot of ambient. Was it ambient that it's called?
Ambient, yeah.
In her system. Like a lot of it. Why did Betsy not just push her over the railing? Like, surely if she pushed her over, again, I'm not, but like if you pushed her over her facing out, I feel like I've seen this a lot in Midsummer Murders.
You mean over the railing instead of like through the railing?
Instead of through it. Like, she's like, you know, has enough ambient in her system to be calm and sleepy, and you just push her over, as opposed to like, I don't understand how Betsy or how Pam killed her. Like,
the logistics of this are a little confusing. So yeah, this was murky to me. So yeah, she goes through the railing. The railing is broken, and sort of the thing that Dateline questions is, this was a 200-pound woman who, like, they go into the physics of it. Like, it's almost impossible that she could have broken all of these railings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
not
understand.
Just broken some of the railings, bent the ones to the side that didn't fully break. Like, why would they bend?
Yeah,
unless she was grabbing onto them, which is really upsetting.
How did it even happen? Like, yeah, you're right. Like, why didn't she just go over? I don't know. That was really weird.
And then the bath was running. Was that just to take away the noise? Was she running a bath or running the water to like get her in the bath and hopefully kill her that way? And then also, like, the police rang the brother and said, like, you know, there's a question on whether this might not have been like an accident. And the brother was like, I'm not worried.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
All right. Like, I don't know. It's bizarre.
It's really bizarre. It's one more bizarre thing. And like that, the murder or the death of Pam's mother is just like, there was already enough bizarre things in this story. And just one more just to kind of add to the pile of bizarre things. I don't know what to do with that.
Where was her husband in all of this? Like, all we hear about Pam's husband is he was a quiet construction worker, which, like,
yeah,
that's it. Like, there's no mention of, like, we tried to get in contact with him. Like,
I don't know.
Nothing?
I mean, this gets into so we also learned in that 6th episode about Mike Wood, who ran for lead prosecutor, and basically replaced Askey, the woman who was the prosecutor when Russ went to trial. And he basically ran on this case, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that was his whole pitch, was like, this was botched. This was prosecutorial misconduct.
Can we pause? Sorry, again, not from America. I'm not used to these adverts, but like, did you notice his advert on it? Being like, it was like a robotic, like, do you know Askey is like, I don't know, it was this really robotic, like, like advert basically about this entire case, like, you know, she should not be reelected. And I was just like, I don't know, the ad, I was like, does this convince anyone? I don't know. Get Keith on there.
Yeah, Keith would do a great political ad. Oh my gosh, I would, if I was running for any office, I would want Keith on my ads. That would be
I kind of want
great.
him to narrate my life, like.
I would take that. Keith also, I mean, just again as a really important aside, as good as he is at a speed of 1, he's good at a speed of like 1.2, probably 1.5. At 0.5, Keith is amazing.
Oh my God, really? I don't know if anyone's good at 0.5. Like, it's like, I thought it was a little bit disconcerting. He was so slow.
Anyway, so Mike Wood, he wins lead prosecutor. He reopens the murder investigation. What else? Yeah, so he announces that Pam is going to be charged with the killing of Betsy. Also, he pursues the prosecutorial and police misconduct in the case, which seems long overdue. That happened in this is a little bit of this is in the like Coda episode, Return to Lincoln County. So that's effectively the 7th episode. It's just a short little bit that came out a couple of years after the main podcast. What else happens? Oh, we also learned that Russ gets $2 million from Lincoln County. They don't admit any wrongdoing, but he gets a little bit of money, which good for him.
Interesting. Yeah, and like I feel like going back to the start, like one of the first questions I think you asked was like thoughts on Russ, what did you make of him? And I was a bit like, whatever. The one thing I'll say is he got off and he wasn't like, I want my name to be cleared, I want money or whatever. He was like, it's about Betsy. And I don't know if this was just what do they call it, a soundbite or something, but like, I want, like, Betsy hasn't got justice. And like, that was fairly admirable, I have to say. Like, after all he went through, he didn't really seem overly fazed by anything, to be honest. I was like, how do you get that chilled out? But like,
he reminded me, like, we didn't touch on this, but when he went through his first trial, they talk about how he really bonded with the bailiff.
Oh my God, yes, I loved that.
Like the bailiff helped like support him when he was convicted. Like he like make sure he like, because he was going to collapse, and then he only has nice things to say about his prison. Like they ask him about the difference between the two prisons he was kept at, and he just says nice things. Like he comes across as just like a kind, gentle soul.
You know what? You're so right. I need to wipe what I said at the start. You're so right. Do you know what? I actually have written down. It seems to emphasize his soundness, that his nature with the bailiffs. It's like that old age thing of like, you don't judge someone on how they treat someone, you know, that they work with, a peer of theirs or someone in a higher up position. You know, you really look out for how people treat everyone. And if they treat everyone with the same respect and not putting anyone on a pedestal, that's the sign of, like, you know, someone with a great character. And I think that totally stands here. Sorry, Russ. I made a bad judgment on you. You seem very sound.
Well, I mean, I think it's a judgment of how you treat people. I think the way you treated Russ there. I think it speaks poorly of your character.
No, it doesn't.
Just a little bit.
That's a lot of people in here.
One more thing about Russ, I think there was an interesting little tidbit about when Dateline wanted to talk to him, and his lawyer was like, "Yeah, okay, go ahead. I don't need to be there." Like,
like straight after being like, "There's nothing he can say." Like,
which and they
totally
make this point,
the truth.
like that's unheard of, right? Like there's an active investigation going on. You'd think the lawyer would want to just be present, just to like make sure he doesn't say too much, but he just like, no, this guy's solid. Like he's fine. Yeah.
Fair points. I retract my earlier statements completely on Russ. I would like to know, so like, look, there's a lot in this podcast. There's a lot that they deal with, and I think we've discussed how we think it's done very well. We've already spoken about our initial thoughts, but I wonder, like, what are the moments that kind of linger or like haunt you?
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot. I feel like there's gonna be more for this than probably. I don't know. We'll see what else we listen to in the future. But um, I don't know. Well, we talked about Pam stabbing herself with a pen. That's just such a gruesome,
Mm.
out of nowhere thing to happen. I think I'm kind of working backwards through the story, but like the whole thing about her mother, just like it just seems so superfluous, just so like I know it was for the money, right? Like it was for insurance money, but again, like with Betsy, like Betsy was gonna die. Betsy had terminal cancer. Pam's mother wasn't gonna live that long. Like,
And she
wait
also
it out.
told the police, like, sure, if I wanted money, I could just kill my mother. Like, she told them, she was goading them.
She did. She did. I think the gratuitousness of the sexual relationship between Pam and Betsy, like, why? Like, how did that help you?
Nothing.
What did that do?
Yeah.
The egregiousness of like not following the money, like the money trail, like always follow the money. What have we learned from every show ever? Like, it's always about the money, right?
Hmm. It's either about the money or the sex, and that's it.
Yeah. 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 What about you? What lingered for you?
So, again, there's a lot. Like, I feel like I could have, like, I could say so much about it. But one thing that's like, Pam seems to just love a bit of drama. Like, she loves inserting herself in drama. And like, there was a lot of talk about how she didn't really have solid friends, and Betsy and their like strong air quotes relationship or friendship like was very unusual for her. People kind of liked her, but nobody was like, one of her very good friends. And seemed like she just wanted to insert herself in drama the entire time. And when I think of that, I think, oh, that's like a bit sad. This is terrifying. This is a terrifying example of how someone can want to insert themselves in drama all the time. Like the amount she did, it was really shocking. The premeditated killing of Lewis was when you heard his mum describe him, and like,
it's really sad.
He thinks he's just earning a few bob, and he like goes down and is going through with it all. And I presume she said like the gun is empty or it's got blanks. The thought of the moment of realization there when he's like, oh, this is not right. Really, really sad. It also like, and I've said this already, but I just don't understand it. Like, I don't understand the why behind it. Like, she already got away with the money, Betsy's and her mother's at this stage. And like, Betsy's case was still closed. So to me, it just didn't make sense. And then the alleged killing of her mother in that way, again, I've spoken about that. It was just horrific. Like, there's a lot.
What, in the end, like, as a podcast, as a true crime story, was it satisfying?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. We put like, you got to be careful that it like, this is obviously, we're talking about the podcast itself as opposed to the story. Like, we're aware that these are like real people who have gone through a lot. I do have to say, like, I know there was a few comments made in episode 6, like that Pam doesn't get convicted for Betsy or for her mother's murder. But she also is in prison for the rest of her life. And I know she's going through the trial at the moment for Betsy. And I have to say that feels satisfying-ish, as satisfying as it can, to see someone locked up for the rest of their lives and to also know that they haven't, like, maybe all of the things that they have done.
I agree. I think the original ending of the podcast, like those charges for the killing of Betsy, that hadn't happened yet in 2019, or I think it was 2019 when the podcast came out. So that we have that little extra episode, and that, that episode came out in 2021. I mean, that trial is as we record this in 2024, is I think just happening or about to happen now. So that's pretty satisfying. We'll have to
do an extra once that comes out.
We will.
It is pretty satisfying to know at least she's kind of going through that. But then also there's the element of me that's like, well, she's probably excited by the drama.
Yeah. Yeah. But I agree with what you said first, though, about like the fact that Pam is in prison for the rest of her life, seemingly, at the moment, at least. That it feels like there's a little bit of justice. One other tidbit that I don't know if you saw this, but do you know what happened to Carol Alford?
No, my God. She coming for drinks?
She married Russ Faria.
Stop it. She didn't.
Mm-hmm. And they've been attending the pretrial events of Pam together. Yeah.
Sorry, I need to see a timeline. Like, when did they meet? Wild.
They met because
at
of
court.
this. They met because of this.
Do you know what that is? That is the biggest FU to Pam ever. I love that. Oh my God. That's amazing.
There is an adorable picture of the two of them. I think it's in that St. Louis magazine article. Yeah.
Put the link up. I need to see it. That's amazing.
Very, very happy for the two of them. They have this. I mean, they bonded over this Pam thing. It's that's a great
Do you
end to
reckon
their
they host
story.
game night? She always brings her 2 knives wherever she goes anyway.
I wonder how she feels about the road. I wonder.
I mean, she's not watching the road.
No
way.
All right. So would you recommend this podcast?
I would 100% recommend this to a friend. Unless obviously they are, named as the benefactor of to my life insurance, then I'd be like, no, don't do that. My overall thing is like, Jeff, I'm just going to take you on a short journey, if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
Dateline's tag kind of towards the end goes with, no, at the very start, the very first episode is, it's up to us to take you on a journey. But this time, instead of us creating the journey, we got sucked into one of our own. I loved that line, first of all. But wait to hear how well this podcast is produced. 6 episodes. What was it, like 35-minute max?
Yeah, I think so.
Very short. Again, I was baffled, Jeff, at how they fit in all of this without making me, or you, I presume, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, feeling completely overwhelmed. Like, I never felt overwhelmed. They got 3 murders, or maybe deaths. They haven't been ruled murders yet. 2 insurance claims, 2 alleged plots to stage a murder, 1 alleged friendship turned relationship affair, 1 attempted suicide in police custody that compared to one of the murders, and many, many lazy police, and 1 prosecutor that was more than unethical with a witness or suspect. How did they fit that all in to 6 episodes? And it's not fiction. Like, it's a true story. They did it so well. I'm like, to anyone who's interested in true crime, listen to this, sit back. Like, it's got your financial crime, it's got your murder, it's got your staging, it's got your elder abuse. Not that these are great things that we like to listen to in a podcast. It's got like these tangents about like Pam's sexual orientation. It's just got so much.
Yeah.
It had me screaming at my headphones to myself in my car, wherever I was, because there was just so much.
I agree. It's masterful storytelling. I think when I started this, so we talked in the first episode on this about Keith and his voice and just how much like a pro he is and how smooth he is. And I think actually when I really first started this, I thought like, oh, is this too much? Like, is this, I feel like Dateline has a little bit of a reputation as a little bit, a lot, like a little overproduced, a little too slick. And I thought that at the beginning, but they're real good at what they do. Like, this is very well told. You're right. Like the volume of events in a short time period that they cover, and they cover it in a logical way. I was able to follow it. I was hooked really throughout, and they just kept throwing twists at you. And I even wondered at the beginning when they talk about it, they get involved in the story, like, oh, really? Like this is a little self-centered on Dateline. But that was a key element of the story. Like Pam pretending to be the Dateline producer was pivotal to the story. So it all worked. It all fit. This was, I would definitely recommend this to people. 100%.
Yeah. So there you go. 2 out of 2 in our recommendations, I would say. 2 podcasts we've listened to that we would tell other true crime. What's the word?
Junkies? Fans?
Enthusiasts to listen to. Definitely. And not too overbearing.
No, this was a good one. This is a great listen. Really
I feel like with this episode as well, there was so much that I feel like you could listen to this episode and still listen to the 6 episodes it's about the thing about Pam and still get something from it.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact that in a year, maybe 2, I'm going to re-listen to this podcast.
Yeah. No, I think this is definitely one that you could come back to for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. And that is us done.
All right.
Clocking out.
We did it. Yeah. That's
we
this.
did
That's
it.
the... In our next episode, we're off to the rich suburbs of London for a story about one of the most prolific con artists in British history, Juliet D'Souza. We'll be previewing the 2023 podcast, Filthy Ritual. We'll set up the story and preview the first episode, and we'll tell you why or why not the crime is worth your time.
So Much Crime, So Little Time is a production of MimeGov Media. The executive producer is Paxton Calariso. Our associate producer is Blythe Ty. Theme music was composed by Vyacheslav Starostin. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to this show in your podcast app. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and a review. Even better, tell your friends. To join the discussion, look for us on social media. Check out the show notes for all the links. Thanks for listening.